So as you saw previously in the video, I had the two ends submerged in the deoxy bath with your green recycling bin led on a shallow angle. Both ends submerged probably over the course of a week, 10 days, each end one at a time. I kept turning it around until eventually I was happy that the rust was gone. Then I treated the middle with the gel, the middle section. I didn't want to submerge the whole frame in a bath because that would have taken a lot of powder. That would have been a big volume of solution, a lot of powder, and that would have started working out quite expensive. So yeah, deoxy bath each end, and then the gel for the middle. The deoxy and the gel, when they treat the rusty areas, the paint around those rusty areas, they will actually get under the paint and start lifting the paint. So you want to make sure that there's no loose paint anywhere. Or if you use the gel or the deoxy, it's usually around the, like I say, around the rusty areas. I don't know if you can see there. So those weld joints got rusty, surface rust spread out, but that paint there, the black that you can see, is quite firm. It's very well stuck on there. I've tried to get it off, and this is pretty good. But the loose stuff, like I say, obviously needs to come off before you start applying any more coats. So yeah, this was all jet washed off afterwards. Jet wash was fired in these hollow sections and the cavited sections of the frame. Get any loose paint off. And once I was happy, all the loose paint was off, then I had a good rinse off with the Atom Mac. Good strong concentration of Atom Mac, about 10%. Hydrate 80 inside the frame as well, obviously. So the reason I've gone against sandblasting and powder coating is because I've had this one done, and it does look pretty good on the surface of it, but you look a bit closer inside these cavities and there's actually corrosion forming again in there. Now this subframe has been sat in the garage for about a year. That's just where they've missed it. They haven't got the sandblaster in there. So yeah, that's the reason I'm doing this. I've got a couple of question marks over sandblasting and powder coating as well. So, you know, these companies are busy. They're doing it as quick as they can, I expect, which is the reason they've missed that, what I just showed you. But I also question how long it is between the two processes, between sandblasting and powder coating, how long is left bare still, what sort of conditions is left in, i.e. humidity, because that's when flash off occurs on bare still. So obviously if flash off has occurred on the bare still, powder coating straight over that is not good. What medium they use, how well they clean their medium. So if there's any contaminants in the medium, i.e. rust particles, oxidized steel particles, where they've been doing previous jobs, if that's being fired at high rate of knots at bare steel, that's not very good either in my opinion. And then again, powder coat straight on top of that. It's ready for paint now. But again, like I've said before, a lot of it is about preparation. So I spent a lot of time cleaning the subframe up using that. They are excellent for removing rust and paint. There's a poly wheel, a 4.5 inch grinder, also this little belt sander, that's really good as well. So yeah, as I said, clean it up as much as you can first before you start using any of the products, and you'll get better results, you'll get good results. It might not look that pretty at the moment, but I'm confident that rust has been treated 99.9%, and anything that I have possibly left in pitting or in the hollow sections is going to be contained by the Hydrate 80. So Hydrate 80 is a containment system, it just keeps it at bay. So yeah, I think I've covered everything for the moment. I'll start the painting process and I'll go bring you back. Okay, another update on the subframes. So that's the one that I treated in the deoxy bath you saw earlier in the video. This is the one I've had sandblasted and powder coated, and I just wanted to run through a few things before I start fitting the bushes. Just talk about a few of the things I've come across with doing these frames. Some people might be saying, why don't you just buy the new ones online? Get new ones with bushes, 180 quid I think it is. I've also heard that the quality is not that clever. I think they're Chinese, and I've heard that they rot as well pretty bad. So that's the reason I'm going for genuine Ford and refurbing them, doing the rust treatment and putting all the new bushes in. It is a long drawn out process, and it does cost a few quid, you know. Although you can buy the actual frames themselves quite cheap, the bushes and all the rest of it all adds up. I wouldn't say you would be spending 180 quid doing it, but it depends really. If you decide to go down the sandblasting and powder coating route like that one, so to get that frame done, that cost me 100 quid, sandblasted and powder coated. Bushes, that's probably going to cost you another, bushes and brackets, another 50-60 quid I would have said, at least. A few bits, other bits and pieces, There's the tool as well. I can't remember how much the tool cost me now because it was a little while ago I bought that. But yeah, so this is basically, I've just got together all the things you're going to need to go standard and poly, and a few little sort of pointers, a few little tips, you know, problems that I've encountered in the past. So I'm going to fit standard bushes to that one, and fit that to the 220 because that's a good frame, that's a decent frame, that one. And I'm going to stick that one in the TDCI with poly bushes because they're more durable. The TDCI is my daily. So the standard bushes, there's 2 different types, there's 4 in total, so you need 2 of those, and that's the part number, and you'll need 2 of those with the straight edges, and that's the part number for those. So the one with the straight edges goes on this side of the frame, the same side of the frame that the anti-roll bar goes on, and then that bush there goes on the other side of the frame, which needs to be in a certain orientation, but I'll show you that when I actually come to fit them. Yeah, the brackets as well, the sway bar brackets, I think you can still get those new, genuine Ford, quite cheap. I think they're about £5 a piece. The polys, you'll need the housings, the bush housings, so you'll need to drill out the centres and get rid of the rubber. So the best way I found of doing it is to use hole saws. So I found there's 2 different size hole saws. So that is a, what is that? I think that's a 44 mil down through that way. The bush is tapered, as you can see, so obviously you need to be careful you don't hit the inside of the outer housing, the metal of the outer housing. So you take that one down so far and then turn it around and go through with that, which is a 40 mil. Turn it around, obviously. I actually cut that off. I went through that with an axe or a slitting disc and actually cut this off. Just makes getting that hole saw in a bit easier, and then go down through. So once the center comes out, there'll still be rubber left in there, which a lot of people set fire to them, just burn them out, and then you'll be left with the hollow metal housing casing. And once you've got that, then you can fit those into your frame using stud lock. So use stud lock on both edges, so around there and on the underside as well. The two parts where they meet, the bush actually meets the frame. Stud lock needs a certain amount of time to go off before you fit to the car, before you even drive the car, I think. I think it's 24 hours, 48 hours or so, I don't know, can't remember now, but yeah, that needs to be left to go off, and then once it has gone off, you can fit your and use a stud lock on both standard and the outer cups for the poly bushes. But once you've got the outer cups in the outer housing of the bush, then the poly can be pressed in, which that's quite easy. There's a few videos already online about it, I think. You can use some grease and again use the tool like that. So yeah, when I fit the bushes, I like to use these bolts here. So you've got three holes in the frame, and I've cut three 10mm bolts the same length as the depth of the frame, if you see what I'm saying. So those bolts are through and they're sitting on the other edge, the other side of the frame, if you see what I'm saying. And then you put that tool on, sit the tool on the heads of the bolts, and then underneath you put your bush on, and then you put the other side of the tool on. So the bush goes up, obviously once you've got your stud lock in, and then that goes up, and then you wind it in and pull it in, and that helps, or doesn't help, it stops you from crushing the frame, because there is a chance if you don't get it all lined up nicely, there is a chance you could crush the frame a little bit. So just take your time, make sure you're lining it all up nice. The other thing you can do to help yourself the day before you're about to do these bushes is to put the bushes and or the outer housings in the freezer, and you can actually warm up the ends of your frame where the bushes are going to sit, where they're going to be pulled into. Warm them up with a heat gun or what have you. So you've got the two opposites. So those are cold and contracted, and that's warm and expanded. So that might help you out a little bit. What else was it? This business with the axle here, you're probably wondering what's going on. So when I did this job, the bushes can be quite badly corroded and deteriorated, and the rubbers can actually come out the centres, what I was just talking about drilling out. If they're that bad, the old ones, the original ones, they can actually come out, and that's what happened to me. So I didn't really know what I was doing, to be honest, and by mistake I pulled the centres out. It was all crunchy and crusty and horrible, and the centre rubbers came out, leaving the corroded metal housings in the frame, which I still struggled to get out. I had quite a bit of trouble. It was the first time I did it, so I was struggling. But what I found was, if you get a hacksaw in the frame like that, through that metal housing, and you turn the blade round, and you cut a line in that cup, in that housing, that metal housing, cut a line right the way down through, also there as well, cut through there, all in line. And what that does is takes the tension, because like I said, those metal housings are tapered, and like I said, they're pressed into the frame. So once you've got that line cut, it takes the tension off of the bush, and it makes it easier to come out. Once I did that, once I had that line cut, it came out a lot easier. You have to be careful not to hit the frame, mind you. You have to be very careful. So yeah, that's another little tip, another little pointer. Again, I said the previous video, these sway bar brackets held in with it's an 8mm nut, and it's a 10mm head on an 8mm nut, believe it or not, and they're a load of shit. They're made of chocolate, and they're long. The threads sit in the underside of it, get corroded. You come along, pull them out, and it just seize up, shear off. That's what's happened there with this one. So what I'm going to do is, I've done this before on another video, another subframe. I drill that hole out to a 10mm. I drill that hole out to a 10mm, and I put a 17mm, 10mm bolt, 17mm head in through there, and nylon nut on it, look. And you've got just enough room to get a 17mm spanner in the frame to hold your nut when you do it up. And I would say that was superior to what Ford did with those epoxy little 8mm bolts. So that's that one. I mean, if you can reuse the 8mm, but there's a nut inside there, and what happens is a square nut, and it's got 4 little spot welds on each corner of the nut. I put a little chisel in there and smash the nut off. Comes off quite easy. Rather than trying to mess around with that, rethread it and all the rest of it, I just think it's, I mean, once you've knocked one off and you realise how inferior they are, how badly they're held on, because they do come off quite easy. You just need to give it a sharp wallop with a chisel, like I say, and they come straight off, no problem. So I would prefer to do that, what I've just said, and have a nice new 10mm zinc or stainless steel bolt in there, nylon nut. I ain't going anywhere. It is a bit tricky getting your 17mm spanner in there, but it is doable. You can do it. Pins as well, subframe pins. You can buy them online, they're 30-40 quid, but personally, if you can get them made up on a lathe or what have you, I would do that all day long, because it's not the sort of thing you're going to use time and time again. You're probably going to use it a couple of times and that's it. So there's 2 different diameters there to suit the 2 different diameter holes in the frame. So there's the bigger hole there, and then there's a smaller hole on that side of the frame. So once that pins in and lined up with those two different diameters. It's nice and square, and then that goes on through, and that end of the pin goes into the underside of the car. There's another hole, same diameter, and you've got one that side, one that side, and once you've got those two pins in, all lined up square, you know that frame's in the right place. You know, a square. I think that is about it. I don't think I've missed anything. I also want to say about you know, I see people trying to do these bushes with the frame in the car, and I'd really advise against that. You know, that's hard work. You're making a lot of hard work for yourself. Take the frame out all day long. It's a no-brainer, seriously. You've got your 4 bolts where your bushes go. You've got 4 bolts off your trailing arms to the back of your knuckles. So that's 8 bolts in total. They never really usually seize. They've never really given me any trouble. If you've got impact wrench, then happy days. And then you've got your 2 drop link nuts, which need to come off. You only need to take the 2 off. You don't need to take the drop link completely off. And that's the ones that might cause you a little bit of trouble, because those threads are exposed. So they're usually shitted up and seized up, rusty, all the rest of it. So you need to clean those threads up before you start soaking penetrating fluid. Give yourself a good chance of getting those off. So yeah, I would strongly advise doing all that, getting all that undone. It might be best actually to take the rear struts out, because they might be in your way. But again, that's no big deal. The big struts, the struts are held in under the wheel arch by 2 10mm nuts. Again, bit tricky to get to, but long extension, you get out there when the struts out of the way is even easier. So you've got your ABS plug, you need to unplug that, and also your side trailing arm you need to undo as well. Obviously the caliper needs to come off and be hung up out of the way somewhere. And it is more work, but you don't need to take the strut out. It just makes it a bit easier, that's all. It's more work but easier, and that's one of the things I keep mentioning in my videos. I prefer to do more work and make the job easier for myself. I just found from experience, if you're trying to rush, you're trying to do things quick, and you're not taking things out that make your life easier, it ends up going wrong, ends up getting into, you know, it gets messy, things go wrong. So yeah, I would definitely just take it out, take your time, especially getting these bushes out. Try not to damage the frame. You know, whether you want to treat it yourself, it depends how badly the frame's corroded. But you know, they're usually, I mean, if you've got high mileage car, if it's coming off a high mileage car, it probably has got some rust and some pitting on it. But I've seen some really bad ones refurbed and put back on. Not just on the Mondeo, I'm talking about, you know, all cars, like Subarus and Mazda MX-5s. You know, they've put them in a bath where they've treated like I've done, similar to what I've done, and they've come out and the pitting is horrendous, and they've painted it out and stuck it back on the car. I'd be happy with that, but still, each to their own. So yeah, trailing arms, I won't be fitting the arms just yet. I'll probably do that just before the frame goes on the car, because obviously that needs 4-wheel alignment. And there's a lot of suspension work. There's a few things that needs to be torqued up when the full weight of the car is down on the ground. But obviously that's going to be in a garage. Hunter wheel alignment, I think, is going to be the favourite for me. I'll probably do that at the same time as I get the wheels refurbed. I'm going to get the wheels refurbed at some point. So when I have the wheels refurbed, the company who do my refurbs, they've got the 4-wheel alignment system, so I'll get them to do that at the same time once the new frame's on. But yeah, I think that's about it really for now. But if anyone's, you know, knows I've missed anything or got any more ideas, Any more pointers, anything I've missed out, let me know, and yeah, we'll thrash it out, get to the bottom of all these issues. I'll bring you back when I'm about to fit the bushes. All right.